You're listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities. The views and comments expressed in this podcast are not necessarily those of the AMAA or our sponsors. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities. Presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. Check them out at adaptivemartialarts.org. Breaking barriers, one move at a time.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Label. I'm JD.
I'm Charlie Murphy.
And we're joined by Paul Graber. Paul, how's it going today?
Going very well. Thanks for having me again, guys. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Yeah, you joined us a little while ago. That was a great episode, so we decided to have you back. Charlie, tell the folks a little bit about Paul and Paul's background here.
Well, Paul is, he has cerebral palsy, was diagnosed at birth?
At 2 years old.
At 2 years, okay, at 2 years old, unable to walk until they did some heel cord surgery. Was that the case back when you were about 5 years old?
Yes.
And you had your own business when you were 18. And then from there, you've gone on and you have your own business now, Shaolin Arts.
Yes.
And tell the folks about that a little bit.
Shaolin Arts was born out of basically the benefits that I saw that my martial arts training had given me as far as improvements in balance, coordination, strength, flexibility, things of that nature. And I really just thought that I would be able to share those benefits with other people in the disabled community. And having a disability myself and working within the disabled community, I kind of felt like my life and professional experience really coupled well with my martial arts experience. And I just decided to have a go at sharing the benefits that I've gained through martial arts training with other people. And in trying to come up with a way to package that, I figured the bulk of my martial arts training came from Shaolin, the Shaolin Chinese Kung Fu. And then I didn't want it to be limited too much to pigeonhole people to think the only thing that they could come and do would be martial arts. So I thought, well, I wanted to be something more inclusive. So that's where I came up with the acronym ARTS, Adapted Realistic Techniques. And that way, anyone who comes to me, even if they're not necessarily interested in doing martial arts per se, we can do various fitness things, because I'm also a certified kettlebell trainer. I've been doing that for 13 years through the International Kettlebell and Fitness Federation. And really, just with being 52 years old, I feel like I have a lot of life experience that I can offer other people in the disabled community, and just different ways to navigate the everyday life, really. And that's just what I try to do is help anybody that comes to me, whether it be for fitness, martial arts, or even just help with, living life. So I'm just very fortunate. I've had good response, and I'm just very blessed and fortunate to be able to help people. That's what I like to do. So
nice.
Paul, we since that first episode back a while ago, we've talked and chatted on the phone a couple of times, and our stories really do parallel quite a bit. I mean, and that was the whole reason for me starting the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, was because I saw a great benefit from my martial arts training, and wanted to, pass that along to others. But since that time, we've had some pretty good conversations, and almost feel like sometimes if we could air those conversations, it would do the movement for inclusion and justice. So this episode here tonight, we kind of want to let go a little bit and just kind of let people understand the perspective that we come from as we look at our disabilities, and we understand that our views are not necessarily the views of everybody, but you and I have seemed to survive okay. There's like 10 years difference between us, and we must be doing something right, because we're still doing so. We've run across a lot in our life along the way, and I thought that we would share it with the audience. And so I guess what I would say is that, we hope to enlighten you in terms of our outlook on disabilities. But, before we get started, we want you to understand that it is our our outlook on disabilities.
Yeah,
Well,
I really don't have one. Well, I do, but it's not going to be the same as yours.
No, but it'll be an interesting angle because what is your outlook on disabilities as somebody that is able bodied, and there's got to be a better word for that, but it's the one that we use all the time.
Yeah, no, that's
It's like, so it'll be an interesting topic tonight. So I guess from here on in, you know, buckle your safety belt because this ride could get crazy. I mean, that's the only thing I can tell you. And we're just gonna kind of spitball it and see how it goes and what happens. Paul, you've kind of worked in the disabled community a little bit with other individuals, and so you bring that perspective as well. Um, what can you speak to this topic about, and what's your feeling about us even bringing up this topic? Because it's a big, huge elephant in the room, and it's kind of hush hush, and you and I are just kind of straight up guys, and felt like it needs to kind of come out. So I squeezed the elephant in the room today, and we'll see what we can do with them.
no, I agree completely, Jason. It is a topic that needs to be addressed, and it is something that I think a lot of people don't talk about because, opinions vary. But really, from my perspective, being 52, like you said, I'm a little bit older than you, about 10 years. The ADA just turned, 31, 32? Well, you got to figure, that was passed in 1990. I graduated high school in 1988. So I was out of high school before the Americans with Disabilities Act was even a thing. So that right there, I have an entirely different perspective growing up with a disability than someone who's been alive since 1990 with, federal protections in place that make sure they're treated accordingly that they're supposed to be. And to a large extent, I think it's wonderful because, the ADA makes sure that, buildings are accessible, that, we have places to park and things like that. But in some ways, I am very much not politically correct. And in fact, I actually strive to not be politically correct. And in my personal opinion, I find a lot of political correctness to truly be fascism disguised as manners. I think that people have really gotten to be rather thin-skinned these days, and because take bullying, for instance. In my time, when I was in middle school and high school, a bully was the guy who took your lunch money. A bully was the guy who was actually going to physically beat you up. That was a bully. People who made fun of you, who joked on you, who said mean things to you, we didn't call those people bullies. We called them jerks. Actually, we called them something else, but this is a PG show, so I'm going to refrain from using that particular word. But you get my point. We grew up with sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And that's really not where we're at now, because there's the words hurt campaign. And not to disparage that, I'm all for not being mean to people, not talking nasty to people. But in one of the talks that I give to students in classrooms, I tell them, I say, put your hand in front of your face like this, to where you can feel your breath on your hand. Now I want you to say, you're ugly. I hate you. You're stupid. You're dumb. You look stupid. Your clothes are ugly. You're awful. You're a horrible person. I hate you. I can't stand you. Look at my hand. Is there any blood on my hand? Is there any contusions on my hand? Is my hand broken? No, it's not. All those words were hot air and attitude. And they don't have any more power than I or anyone else chooses to give them. Now, I had someone who had a counterpoint to this. And they said, well, no, if you do the sticks and stones thing, you're just repressing things and you're ignoring things and you're putting things down that you should deal with. No, that's not the case at all. If you teach a child, like I was taught from the time I was 2 and 3 years old, I was taught not to pay attention to what people said to me when it came to insulting me. If you literally teach a child to do that when they are small, they're not going to repress their feelings. They're not going to stuff things down and not deal with it. They genuinely don't care. They really don't care. So it really doesn't bother them. That's why I never, not once, ever no matter what anybody said to me, whether it was middle school, elementary school, high school, it never mattered. I never once ever came home and sat in my room and cried, felt sorry for myself, and I most certainly never thought about, checking out because of it. And I really think that the pendulum has swung the other way. We are so much into being so afraid that somebody's going to have adversity or something harsh, that they're going to encounter something harsh, that we've completely removed their ability to handle it when it does. Am I making sense, guys?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, amen. I'm half Japanese, and growing up, every once in a while, somebody would say, I'm young, I'm the second, third grade or whatever, something like that. Hey, Kung Fu, or hey, Charlie Chan, or something like that. And did it bother me? Yeah. Did I go home and cry to my mom or my dad about it? No. I just dealt with it by my own way, dealing with it, whether I chose to say, don't call me that, or just ignore them, or just laugh or whatever, because, it bothered me. But did it truly offend me? Was I hurt? Was I going to start crying? No. And if I would have gone home, and if I would have told my mother, she would have walked right over to their house, and she would have knocked on the door, and she would have just opened up a whole can of worms that I didn't want to be involved with. So, I just kept it to myself, and you deal with it, and then you start working out, and then you feel like you're in good control of your own self, and that you could defend yourself if you needed to. And then at that point you say, look, you're being stupid, cool it, or we're going to have an issue. And that was usually pretty much the end of it at that point. So,
and when I was younger, even I took it a step further. If someone joked on me, I joked back, because everybody's got something that can be picked on, something that can be looked at in an unflattering light if you want to. And I soon got a reputation of, you might not want to start throwing jokes at Paul because he's better at that than you are.
Well, and for me, Paul, I'm sitting here listening to you guys talk about it, and I'm thinking, and for me, I was pretty fortunate. So I'm the youngest of 5. I had older brothers and an older sister, and I wasn't raised any different. Like, I'd wrestle with my brother, and my mother would yell at him, and then pretty soon she realized it was me that was egging him on. And she said to me, "You're going to get what you asked for. I'm not going to keep coming to your rescue." And I got what I was asking for. And so you learn pretty quick that, just because you have a disability doesn't make you any more special than the next guy. And I think sometimes we get a little caught up in the special. And I'm not saying that, it shouldn't be recognized, but I'm saying sometimes we're a little too soft. We're too soft on kids that don't have a disability. So it's, you got to be careful of that. And so my experience, I was the first kid with a disability to be integrated into the regular classroom in my school. Before that, kids went to what they called the ungraded room that had a disability. It didn't matter what the disability was. You didn't see them there. So I always felt like it was kind of like my responsibility to teach my peers about my disability. And I'd done some early education stuff and been with other kids with disabilities. And to be honest with you, I was as afraid of the disabilities as anybody else. Like, what is the matter with this dude? So when I got into the traditional school setting, I guess from having older brothers and an older sister, I had a vocabulary that was out of this world in the first grade, and positive and negatively, as I might add. And so I learned early on how to be an advocate for myself and things like that. I think that's what we need to do instead of shielding, individuals with disabilities. You need to teach them how to be an advocate. Let them know that it's your responsibility to help provide inclusion and education to folks that don't know. And like you guys, I had a problem one time. So one time out of my whole high school career. And that was in the third grade, right? And this kid was he was a bully, and looking back on it, he had a pretty rough go. And if you look at what bullies are, it's because they have a rough go and they don't know how to express themselves, so they're doing whatever makes them feel better. And he used to pick on me, and he, what are you gonna do with that wheelchair? And I said, well, I don't know about you. I said, and I don't know if I can take care of myself. I was like, but I got about 6 guys behind me that can take care of me. I was like, doesn't look like you got anybody standing behind you. And he's like, oh, great words from a cripple that can't back up, what he's throwing down. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, I'm about ready to be scheduled for some surgery to get out of this chair. I said, and as soon as I do, I said, if you'd like to go, then we'll do that. And
there you go.
And ever since then, once I got out of the chair, there was no more of that, because he was like, oh, he wasn't fooling. He was like, like, I'd been bringing it with my older brothers, so if you want to bring it, let's go. That was my deal.
Right.
And and I didn't let it bother me. I mean, sure, it kind of like, dude, what's up with this dude? Or boy, that dude's a jerk. But I didn't fall to pieces over it,
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I was kind of hoping he'd run his mouth once I got out of the chair, just so I could see what I could do,
See what you could do, right?
But never got the opportunity. I mean, so like Charlie said, I think once you stand up and once people know where that line is in the sand and they're not expecting you to stand up for yourself, that's pretty helpful. Now, I'm not telling some little kid out there to go, whoop up on somebody. I'm just saying, like, you've got strengths and weaknesses of your own. You need to look at what your strengths are and
Exactly.
and be grateful for that. There's never a day where I look at my disability as like a negative or a bad thing. Everybody's like, oh, I feel so bad for you. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, this is normal to me. I don't feel bad for myself.
Exactly. And I don't want your listeners to think as far as my attitude and a lot of the things I just said. I've been told that sometimes I come off as a little harsh with the way that I present that. And I don't want people to think that, oh, well, I just think that people with disabilities should just tough it on out, and whatever life throws at their ways, that they should just tough it on out. And no matter what, don't ask for help. That's not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying at all. If you need help, ask for it. If you need an accommodation, ask for it. But it has been my experience when it comes to teaching people both with and without disabilities. If you're going to make an assumption about someone, rather than assuming what they cannot do, you should assume what they can do. And every person with a disability that I've ever worked with, they have always, to a person, preferred that I assume they could do something rather than assuming that they could not do something. And it always starts things off on a better foot. And really, I think what the main thing they should be striving for with all this inclusion and all the, adaptations and things like that, I think like you, Jason, and myself, and I think what every other person with a disability really would want, because we don't want to be seen as someone with a disability. We don't want to be seen as our disability. We just want to be seen as ourselves. Last night at martial arts class, one of my good friends and fellow students, his nephew was at class with us. And he was talking to me and he says, Paul, I've kind of got to apologize to you, buddy. And I'm like, apologize to me? What for? I haven't seen you in days. I'm just now seeing you tonight. What could you possibly have done that you need to apologize? And he said, well, I was talking about you the other day to somebody and I forgot that you had CP. So I didn't get the gist of the conversation, but apparently he alluded to me doing something that I probably wouldn't be able to physically do due to my balance or whatever. And he was gently reminded that I had CP. Well, he actually felt bad, like he had somehow slighted me by not remembering that I had a disability. And I said, no, Gabe, that is not at all. I said, buddy, that's the best compliment you could have ever paid me, is you didn't see me as your buddy Paul with CP. You just saw me as your buddy Paul and thought it would be cool if I came and did this with you. And then, and only after the fact did you go, oh, well, yeah, he's got CP, so maybe not. But my disability wasn't the first thing you thought of. In fact, you didn't think of it at all. All you thought of was tall. And I don't know about you, Jason, but that's what I want. And I consider that a compliment. And that's what I try to make sure that all my clients are able to do and all my students are able to do, is to be themselves as people, not people with disabilities. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. I mean, like I tell people, it's I know that you're okay with me when we're going down the stairs and I need an extra hand and you forget that I need my crutches back or we ain't going anywhere. That's when I know, like, hey, they're looking at me for me. And in a little while we'll take this a little deeper, but I want to bounce over to Charlie for a minute and just get his perspective on working with somebody with a disability and
Yeah, sometimes I think you just do it for the parking.
well, absolutely. There's perks to every problem, man. What can I tell you?
Well, that's why my girlfriend hangs out with me. It's for the preferred parking.
So I guess my question is what is it about folks with disabilities that irk you guys? What do you think that, there's all right. There's definitely people out there that need assistance. All right. Now, there's also people out there that are working the system and collecting on this or collecting on that, and they're going to just keep doing it because they keep throwing it their way. I just, what kind of things of that really just get you guys that you see on a regular basis that somebody else is out there and they're milking it. They're working the system. They're doing things they shouldn't be doing and making it harder for everybody else that could use the help.
I think the thing that happens, Charlie, and it's really, I was blessed with the perspective my mother started off with. And I think this is something that gets lost on a lot of folks currently in the disabled community, where there is so much assistance available. And especially when it comes to parents who just found out that their child has a disability. There are so many services and so many things available and so many exceptions to the rule that you don't have to follow if you've got this disability or that disability. My mother, from day one, the moment that she found out that I had cerebral palsy, her first reflex was not to see what check she could sign me up for. Her first reaction was not to see what programs was I eligible for. She didn't try to see what she could get for me for free. She didn't automatically try to see what things I no longer had to do, what rules of society I didn't have to follow anymore. No, she didn't do any of that. Her entire modus operandi of raising me from the moment she found out I had a disability was, what is Paul going to do without me? What is going to happen to Paul if the only person in life Paul has to depend on is Paul? If there is no mom, there is no dad, there is no grandma, there is no aunt, there is no disability check, there is no special program. What if life happens and the only person he ends up having to depend on is him? And that is how she taught me. I wasn't allowed to say that I could not do something, anything, until I tried and tried and tried. And only after every way of trying, and even trying to do it my own way, not necessarily the way that Charlie would do it, only then did mom say, okay, we'll put that on the stuff you can't do. And I think too many parents nowadays, they automatically, as soon as they hear that word disability, it's, oh my goodness, we got to sign up for every program. We got to sign up for every check. We want special treatment. We want special consideration. And it's no longer equal. It's not equality anymore. We don't want equal. We want special. And for those of us who grew up all the way to adulthood before the ADA, that's not what we fought for. That's not what we fought to get the ADA into existence for. It was not so that you could be treated special. It was so that you could be treated equal. And do you feel what I'm saying, Jason?
I do, and my raising was very similar to yours, and I'll give you an example. So as I said, I mean, I grew up doing the same chores my brothers and sisters did. It just looked a little bit different, and
Right.
and so when I was 10, I wanted a dog, and my dad's reaction was, "You don't need a damn dog, but if you can raise the money to get a dog, and you can pay for the vet bills, and you can feed the dog with your own money, then you can get a dog." And so I saved literally every penny I had until I raised enough pennies to get my dog. And I actually brought a handkerchief full of pennies and bought my dog. I mean, there was no handout because I had special needs. It was like, hey, we know you're not going to climb the ladder and paint. Like, we know that's not going to happen, but there's some low stuff down here. Grab a brush and figure it out,
Exactly.
Or hey, those newspapers that are close to the ground, I don't really feel like bending those over and putting them in a bag, but you're in the prime spot to do that. So why don't you put those in a bag?
Exactly.
Give you a little bit of an allowance to do it, so it wasn't, I just,
Yeah, but your mom though, she coddles you.
I am a mama's boy.
You are a mama's boy, and she still coddles you. And you're 30, almost what 42?
I'm 42, but
you're 42 years old. You're the youngest.
I'm the youngest,
and he's a mama's boy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I bet you she was like, no, Jason's not doing that, or Jason's not going to do that.
No, hers wasn't that I wasn't going to do it. She was always afraid that I was going to get hurt. And my dad was the one, he's like, just let him do it.
Okay.
Just let him do it.
All right.
Let him figure it out. And my older brothers were, let him figure it out.
Yeah,
and then
put him up on the ladder. He'll figure it out.
And then my sister-in-law came along, and she was really about, let him figure it out, And to this day, I mean, my mother still worries about, and I'm like, Ma, don't worry about it. I got it, So it was... But it was weird because she was always the one that said, you can do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it. That was what she always told me. And that's what I believed. But she was always the protector, though, because she felt like if something did happen, like she was the one that did most of the therapies and the things like that. So I think she was concerned that it might compound the problem. So what we're saying to people is, there's nothing wrong with having some fears around having a child with a disability, but you gotta let them reach the maximum that they can. And if the maximum they can is the maximum they can, well, then that's the best they can do, and that's all you can hope for. But don't limit the best that they can do with what you think or what society thinks, and don't feel. I guess you asked before, Charlie. The thing that drives me most nuts is when somebody with a disability believes that the whole world has got to bend for them. Like, yeah, it sucks. Like, it sucks that it's not, like there's not prime seating or like it's not as easy as it should be. Like, that sucks, but it's really not. It's not anybody else's problem to a point. Do you understand what I'm saying, Paul? Like,
yes, I do. And actually, I think where we need to, especially for any parents with disabled children that are listening out there, what your mom did and what my mom did, it's been proven true in every student study, in every educator study ever, every child raising study. It doesn't matter whether they got disability or not. Expectations matter. If the child, regardless of ability or disability, has expectations to perform at a certain level, they are going to try and raise up to meet those expectations. So if as a parent with a child with a disability, you still hold that child to the same expectations as you do their non-disabled sibling, to as best you can. I mean, I'm not saying be a draconian, taskmaster, but I'm also saying, keep it real. Don't let them get lazy. Don't let them say can't until they really can't, because those things matter. It really does matter. And if you keep telling your child, oh, well, you can't do that, without letting them even try, they're going to foster that mindset throughout their whole life. And it's going to contaminate everything they do. And anytime they might have a dream or a wonderful idea, something might inspire them to say, oh, well, I want to go take up martial arts, or I want to go start playing the drums, or I want to go be a NASCAR driver or whatever. If they've been raised in a you can't do that because of your disability mindset, they're not even going to try. There is no way that I would be a black belt in martial arts with full contact fighting experience and a kettlebell teacher and all this kind of stuff if my mother had spent my whole formative years telling me all the stuff I couldn't do. And that's the one thing that drives me insane. I have heard it so many times from so many parents of so many disabled children. And I'm not just talking about disabled children that are children age. I'm talking about parents with adult disabled children. The sentence I hear all the time, well, they would, but they can't. And what they don't understand is that same person, if they just said can't, when they're at the day program and mama's not standing right there, they're doing exactly what mama just said they can't do. Those expectations matter a lot. And Jason, you hit upon it. Too many times, the parents have their own preconceived notion about what that disability is. And they think, well, I know my child. I've heard that one too. Well, I know my child. No, you really don't, because when you're not around, they do all kinds of stuff that you keep saying they can't do, but yeah, they can. But then as soon as you're not here, oh, mom says I can't do that.
Oh, and I'll be the I gotta take it I gotta take it back to Charlie's comment about being a mama's boy.
All right, can we just we gotta step aside for a second?
All right, we'll take a break and then we'll get
All
back
right, and
to
then we'll
mama's
hear about
boy,
Jason
all right?
being a mama's boy. You're listening to Beyond the Label. It's a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities, presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. AdaptiveMartialArts.org, breaking barriers one move at a time. Back with Paul Graber in a minute on Beyond the Label.
Beyond the Label, presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. It's no secret, every martial artist, no matter their age, dreams of becoming a legend. A legend. Having their name listed among the greats like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and Jackie Chan. You can hide it or deny it, but you know it's true. Being a legend takes raw talent, dedication, big breaks, and an ability to survive a roller coaster called fame. But it also takes one more thing to go with it: the best gear and equipment in the world. From the company that is martial arts, Century Martial Arts. They aren't just another martial arts supplier that's never set foot on a mat. They are martial artists, and that means they know their products and use what they sell. From uniforms and training gear to weapons and equipment, Century has it all for every martial arts style. Although you may never be listed among the greats, you can still shop like one at CenturyMartialArts.com and unleash your legend within. Century Martial Arts, the world leader in martial arts since 1976. You're listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities, presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association. Check them out at AdaptiveMartialArts.org.
You just pointed at me. I just pointed at you.
Okay, then I guess we'll just do this together.
I thought you got it.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Label. I'm JD.
I'm Charlie Murphy.
And we're not really sure what we're doing here today, but we've got Paul Graber with us. Actually, we're talking about disabilities and again, I guess, perspective of disabilities and how we as individuals in the disabled community shape that perspective for the real world and contribute to inclusion and in a positive and negative way. And we're just kind of laying it out here and sort of, spitballing our feelings here. And it seems to be going pretty good. So thanks for joining us.
Well, and we left off with Jason being a mama's boy, and he was going to go into a little more detail on I don't know what. So you go right ahead, because
I just, I want everybody to know that it's okay to be a mama's boy. And I actually do have a shirt that says mom's favorite, because I am the youngest of 5 and I am mom's favorite. You kind of said that you feel that my mom is like she always kind of comes to my rescue. And,
she does.
And she does. And but yeah, I mean, at the same time, she didn't excuse me from anything, and I did get in my fair share of trouble. I can remember one time, Charlie, in about the 4th grade, I got a little lippy about some stuff that she wanted me to do, and I said I wasn't going to do it, and that was the way it was going to be. And she said, "Mister, you're getting a little too hot for this house, and you can just get out." And I said, "Yeah, right, whatever." And pardon me. And it was kind of warm in the house, and I didn't have a shirt on that day because it was warm. And she picked me up, marched me out on the porch, shut the door behind me, and left me sitting out there on the porch in the spring April weather until I cooled down and could get myself in check. And then she let me back in the house, and we didn't have trouble after that. So I think part of that, there's that part of the story too. Like if I was misbehaving, I wasn't excused from misbehaving. I spent my fair share of time in the corner and in my bedroom with the door shut because I was pretty opinionated. Do you believe that?
No, you? No.
Oh, and I had very similar experiences too. I was held to the same standards. I was expected to get good grades. I spent a lot of time grounded because of my grades, because I viewed school as more of a social experiment than an academic experiment. I wasn't as concerned with my grades as I should have been. I was more concerned with being popular and hanging out with my friends. And same thing, I was held to behavior standards. And if I didn't meet those standards, I was, either grounded or when appropriate, got my butt swatted or, what have you. There was no preferential or special treatment just because, I had CP, because I'm the oldest of three. See, you're the youngest. I'm the oldest of three. I'm the oldest of three. So,
right. By the time they got to me, they were getting kind of tired. And so I did get away with a lot more. I can remember one time, Paul, when I was about 16 and I had my license and my, I was driving and I thought I was pretty cool, hanging out with like older kids at school, stuff like that. Well, I got mouthy to my mom one day, and it didn't take my dad long to take me down and let me know who was still in charge. And he said, "You might be 16, 17 years old," he said, "but I brought you into this world and
I'll take you out."
He said, and I'm not kidding. That's not just a line. And from that day forward, I knew who was in charge. And my wife, Katie, laughs today. It's like, my dad will say something. And she said, if that was me, you'd say something. I said, but that's my dad. And I know he can still whoop my butt,
Yep.
So, it, and everybody out there is probably going, oh no, they abused that poor kid with a disability.
You mean they didn't just give you a timeout?
No, I mean, I had
Oh,
timeout.
you mean you didn't just get your way?
No, no. I had timeouts, and I had the chart with the stars and all that stuff. I can tell you, Paul, my chart never had many stars on it. I don't know if you had.
What's the chart with the stars? You lost me.
Yeah, I think this is where we kind of got soft as a as a nation, believe it or not.
Instead of butt whoopings, you got stars on a chart?
Yeah. So basically, it was
go.
like, if Jason does his exercises, then because exercises, if you have a disability, it's not like going to the gym. It's like painful and really.
It's actually like medieval torture.
Yeah. And so it's like, if Jason does his exercises without a fuss, you give him a star. And at the end of the week, if he has 7 stars, then he gets a reward. And I never got much reward because there was like a half a star.
Now, was this at home, or this was?
Yeah, it was supposed to be. It was at home.
Okay.
And then they reported it to the early education that I went to, and
okay.
it was they meant well, but it didn't work for a guy like me.
Okay, all right.
The concept was good.
Just checking. The worst punishment I think I remember is my dad made me sit on. I was arguing. I was having a fight with my older sister. He made me sit on the couch and hold her hand. Right after we had just got done fighting. I'm like, that was like
your dad creates punishments like I do.
Oh my gosh, that was the worst punishment ever. I'd rather get hit on the back of the legs with a Hot Wheels track, or a shower shoe. My mom used to chase us through the house with her flip flops. She called them shower shoes, and while she's running after you, she could take that thing off her foot and just clip you right on the backside. I'm like, oh my gosh, she was, and then those punishments stop after they swat you with something, and you just laugh, and they're like, oh, okay, we got to move on to something else. You're grounded for a month, that kind of thing. So,
oh yeah, the kids have grown up when they say, can I have a spanking instead of being grounded? No, you cannot.
And for a lot of you out there, spanking is what happened to your kid when they misbehave, and you didn't just put them in a corner in a chair, which is probably the thing to do now. It's a different time, and we have to coddle our children. I get that, but I think even having the punishments that we all kind of seem like we all went through. I mean, it wasn't tortures. It was an instant correction of something that you were doing wrong. And I think we all probably turned out okay.
Yes.
Same with riding a bicycle without a helmet. I don't know how many times I went over the handlebars, and yeah, sometimes I probably say goofy things, and maybe it's from a head injury from falling off a bicycle without a helmet. But I think we probably did okay. And I don't know, Jason, if you had to have, well, you still ride a bike with training wheels, but I kind of get that. But we're gonna get you a hand bike. I understand. We're working on that.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
That's
actually
gonna-
gonna get one of those too. Recumbent, those are great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're talking about a mountain bike try a mountain
Hoorah.
bike. Yeah.
Get
So,
some for it, dude.
you know,
Get some.
my father used to refer to that thing that you're talking about as an attention getter,
Attention getter.
and it gets your attention.
Well, my dad's way of getting your attention was he would say, I will blister your butt so bad you won't be able to sit down for a week.
Well,
And
you know,
it never happened. He never had to do it because that was like, okay, time to straighten up. You're done doing whatever you were doing because I don't want that.
You know, and again, Paul, we're not talking about like, you know, thrashing your kids or any of that. Like that's not what we're saying. And everybody's like, oh, you have a disability and your parents treated you that way. Like to me, I'm pretty proud of the way I was raised because you know I see it today and it's like, you know, I think that
Well-
if most kids were raised with just a little bit of adversity instead of being so shielded and understood consequences, the world would be a lot better place. I think there's no consequence, there's no adversity. It's all easy, it's all handed to you, and if it gets too tough, then you just say, you know, it's not for me.
And Jason, if I could frame it a different way for our parents, especially our parents with children who have disabilities that are listening. You know, you guys are probably out there thinking, my God, these guys are such jerks. Oh my God, they are so mean. No, guys, let me explain something to you, you parents out there with children who have disabilities. By holding your children to standards, by giving them structure, by giving them discipline, by making them live a real life and actually do real things, you give them a chance to accomplish something, to have a sense of accomplishment. If you are forever being a bulldozer parent, making sure that your child never faces any sort of adversity, any sort of challenge, any sort of negative consequence, any sort of natural consequence, you are robbing them of a vital aspect of a joyous life. And that is, I mean, Jason, I know you can relate to this, and Charlie, I'm sure you can too. We've all three of us had moments in our life after we worked our asses off doing something where we really just worked and worked and worked, and it was hard, and we bled, we sweat, we cried, and we just worked and worked. And then when you finally do it for the first time, you do it perfect, you get it right, you did it. That yes, me, yes, yes, rah. That feeling of accomplishment, it is so awesome. There is no alcohol, no drug, no nothing to me that can compete with that rush, with that feeling of accomplishment. And if you are a bulldozer parent who constantly makes sure that your child never experiences any kind of adversity, you are robbing them and cheating them of that experience. And to me, that is cruel.
Yeah, I mean, to me, as somebody with with a disability, and this is why we chose this topic. To me, as somebody with a disability, like this is what you and I fight for. Guys like you and I, this is what we fight for, is to be treated normal. So it's not, you know, everybody's like, oh, it's so terrible. No, it's not. This is great. It's great that I got a butt whooping. You know, maybe not at the time.
A prime example of what I'm talking about. My oldest son, Christopher, is now getting ready to be 30. And when he was probably 10, 11, maybe, I taught him how to play chess. And we played game after game after game after game of chess. And I beat that boy all over a chessboard. I mopped the board with him hundreds of times. Not one single time did I ever, not once did I ever let him win. Ever, not one time. Now, I might advise him. I might say, you might want to think about that, when I was first teaching him. But after a while, I quit doing that, and I just played him, and I beat 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 him. But the one time when he finally beat me, he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I did not let him win. I did not take it easy on him. He legitimately beat his teacher. He beat the person who taught him how to play chess. That boy danced around and did the happy dance in the house for 30 minutes solid. I mean, yes, I beat Dad. I beat Dad. Yes, I beat him. Yes, 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 I won. And he danced. He was ecstatic, Charlie, Jason. He was over the moon. And his sisters and his little brother, they got tired of hearing him. Would you tell him to quit? Tell him to be. I said, I will not tell him to quit and be quiet. He earned that right. He can dance around this house and be as happy as he wanted. And that's exactly what I wanted. But I know 5 parents right off the top of my head that would say I was mean and I was cruel because I never let him win. But it's because I didn't want to cheat him out of that feeling. And if I had let him win even one time, he wouldn't have had that wonderful feeling of knowing, of being 100% certain that I did not take it easy on him and I did not let him win. He earned it. And that was one of my proudest moments as a dad, was watching him dance around and be happy just because he beat me in a game of chess. Am I making sense, guys?
Oh yeah.
You absolutely are. And this is where we're gonna take this in the other direction. You probably think, if you've been listening to this whole episode, that Paul and I are saying, suck it up and being disabled isn't that bad. And you're blowing a little bit out of proportion accommodations and stuff. But what we're saying is, accommodations are in place if you need them. Don't take advantage of them. That's really the point. And let somebody live their life with a disability to their full potential, so that they know what the full potential is. And life is not easy, and life is even tougher if you have a disability. So you got to have a thick skin if you're gonna play in this realm of being adaptive. That's the true meaning of adaptive. So what was it like for you to work with me? I mean, when we first met and things like that, was that your first exposure to somebody with a disability?
Yeah, on a daily basis, yeah, I would say yes. Growing up, there was one kid in our school who we were like 4th, 5th grade, and he had hearing aids, and I never really talked to him any differently. I didn't, talk louder because he had hearing aids. He was just another Elmer. He was just another one of our group. And so that was probably my first experience of someone with a disability. And then, years and years later, I don't really, we had, a couple kids in high school that maybe had, some scoliosis or something, and had a back brace, but we really didn't have anybody that was, bound to a wheelchair or on crutches all the time and that kind of thing. So it was probably when I started working at the radio station with Jason, my first true experience with, somebody not able-bodied. I don't know. I don't even know the term. What do you want to?
Dude, I got a disability. I'm cool with it.
Okay.
It's no secret. It's here. It's not going away. It's what I got.
Well, I don't want to, again, you have to be so PC with everything now. I don't want to say, a crippled kid, or, I don't want to, you don't want to be offensive, but, I mean, I
guess I shouldn't tell you. I used to call my kung fu crip fu then, huh?
Well, actually, and not to get too far off the subject, Charlie, but I was actually, I'm on the fire department, and the fire department's a pretty close-knit group, but we like to razz each other.
Sure.
And so, we were making the standard, the jokes I'm okay with, like hey, cripple kid, why don't you go down and get the pencils, right? And we laughed it off, and we actually got called in the office, and we're told that, if somebody was offended by that, we could get in trouble. And I said, look, if I'm not offended by it, why should anybody else? And I guess, I guess I have a different way of looking at it, but it's tough for me, because to me, that is like that's normal. Like I razz them the same way, you know.
Now,
It's
Jason, can I interject something here real quick?
sure.
You touched on something I want to touch on right there. When you said you got called into the office and told that if it offended someone else, you could get in trouble. That is one of my main problems with where we're at in society. If somebody, and I know people who have been written up and almost lost their job at work because the conversation they had between themselves and another coworker offended someone else. I am sorry, but we have officially gone too far when if the person with a disability is not offended, that it matters that someone else who overhears the conversation who's not disabled is offended. That to me is utterly ridiculous, and we have got to stop that. That's what I mean when I say we have gone way, way, way over the top and too far with this PC crap, when even if the person with a disability who they're supposed to be looking out for isn't offended and doesn't care, all of a sudden we're supposed to not joke and cut up because we might offend somebody who's not disabled? Please, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it.
You know, and the thing is like truly, if it truly offended you, you know, say something to me, and I would stop, because 9 times out of 10, I'm probably the instigator in that conversation. So
Yeah, that's true.
so just go ahead and tell me, hey, dude, can you knock that off? It makes me feel uncomfortable. No, you got to go to somebody and you got to tell them that you feel offended. You're not man enough to come to me and say, dude,
See,
knock it off, because
and we need to go back to being like the comedian Steve Hughes said. So you were offended. Who cares? No one ever died from being offended. You can't make laws about what offends somebody. It's too subjective, you know? I don't understand where all of a sudden being offended is the same as getting your arm chopped off, because that's what the equivalency we're giving it here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah. So we'll take it. We kind of drifted off.
No, that's
Yeah,
all
we
right.
did.
So you know, working with Jason, we worked in an old opera house, and there was like 2 floors, and then there was the mezzanine level, which is where we sat. And so there was really, even though there was an elevator in the building, the elevator would only take you so far. It would take you to the first floor, or it would take you up to the second floor. It didn't take you to like the half floor. So Jason would need to get around. And the first time he's like, I got to go to the bathroom. And I was like, well, you know where it
Exactly.
is. You know, it's right down by the elevator. Well, yeah, but Katie's not here. And I was like, okay, that's his wife. And she
Right.
worked with us as well on the same balcony, mezzanine. And I was like, okay, I don't understand where you're going with this. Well, you see, I'm using these crutches, and I got a little trouble with stairs. And they're, oh, okay. So there was always stairs involved. So you had to go down like a half a flight of stairs to get to the level, to go down to the where the elevator was, and down the hall down to where the bathroom was. And I just, I'm like, what does he want? What does he need? I don't understand. So basically you had to kind of hold the crutches and either get in front of him or grab a belt loop behind him and hope that he doesn't go down. And
And
Come on,
don't
man. Why didn't you just tuck and roll? I mean,
you know what this guy would do? He made a sport out of it. He would try to get me laughing as we were walking down the stairs.
well, of course he did. That's what friends are for.
yeah, I've never really seen him go down. I don't remember ever seeing you. No, I did once, and it was like in slow motion. It was the funniest thing. I felt
You guys
bad,
got
but at the
to
same
quit setting up that that's what she said, Douglas.
it was because I felt helpless. He was going down. I can't get over there fast enough to try and catch him. He's like, okay, I'll help you get up, but I'm not going to be able to help you from hitting the ground. But yeah, so it was just kind of one of those things, and after a while, it was just like, hey man, I got to go. You got to go, and so it just became the one day though. His sister-in-law came in, and Sandy, and she came in, and it was kind of like a walk a mile in my shoes day. And so they were looking for a volunteer for somebody to kind of spend a day as Jason. And I was like, I'll do that. And I'm thinking, okay, so give me the crutches. Well, there's more to it than that. As you see, Jason has issues with his hamstrings are being tight, so they put a weight around my waist, like 20 pounds of weight, so that I had to sit down a little bit lower, so I couldn't actually straighten my legs all the way up. And I'm on his crutches. And then they put a patch over one of my eyes because he has a little bit of a problem with his sight in your left eye.
Left eye, yep.
In your left eye. And what else did they do to me?
They again they kind of tied you there so that you couldn't straighten up, and then you just had to ambulate and be me. And,
yeah. And so I had to get around, and
I think they did something with your fingers too for dexterity, because my dexterity's not very.
Yeah, maybe they did. They might have taped my hand a little bit or something.
Right.
So basically, when I type, I can use these two fingers and my thumb, and that's it. The other ones don't really work very well for fine motor stuff, and so I think that's what they did to you too.
Yes.
And it was you and another guy.
Right, and he did it for like a half hour, and then he was like, "I'm done. I can't do this stuff." I'm thinking, okay, I said I was going to do it, so I'm going to stick it out as best I can. I tell you what, I was a mess after the day. And, after a while, it's like, you can take all that stuff off if you want. I said, no, I said I was going to do it. So I'm going to do it. And the next day my back is all sore and I'm like, what did I do? I said, oh yeah, it was Jason. I was Jason for a day. And, I tell you, it really opened my eyes and made me kind of see the kind of things that he's going through on a daily basis that you just don't, because when I look at him, I'm like, yeah, he's getting around, but he's just a little slower. He's walking with his hand he's, basically walking on his hands all day. And when he talks about getting a cramp in his hand from holding his crutch all day, I'm thinking, oh, that's no big deal. But I'm thinking, okay, well, that's how he gets around. So, and that cramps up, you're done.
Right.
But just, it helped me to kind of see things in a different light. And even the other day we went over to a restaurant and we came in and he started cruising along and it was a tile floor. And, actually when we first walked in, it was a wooden floor. I'm like, oh, okay, it's a wooden floor. And he's like, oh, I was like, what? And he goes, it's a little slippery. I'm like, really? And so I'm watching the tips on his crutches as they're hitting, and they're just
That's not what he said. That's not what he said. He said, quit being such a candy. And then he said,
and it's like, oh, well, maybe I probably had to grab your belt loop. So as we're walking through the restaurant, here I am holding the back of his pants so he doesn't go down. Now I think, I don't even know why I do that, because it's not going to stop you from going down.
No, it's
all
not.
It's going to do is just going to rip your belt loop. You're going to have a belt loop missing. That's all that's going to happen. We got to get you a harness.
I've got so many pants with belt loops that are just
that's
flowing out.
Yeah, I think that's all that's going to happen. I'm going to rip your dang belt loop off.
But
we'll get you a special heavy duty.
But Jason, though, for our folks listening who might be thinking about taking up martial arts, I don't know about you, but my martial arts practice actually keeps me from being quite as crunchy and stiff and unable to move due to CP. It kind of keeps things lubed up, kind of my oil can. I don't know if that's true for you as well, but I'd be in a lot worse shape without my training.
It does. The the mental awareness of it lets me be more aware of where my body is and what it's doing. The physical aspects of it. We have something that the professionals like to call tone, right? And so so there's CP tone, and then there's regular tone, like Charlie, he tries to tone up a little bit and get a little bit tighter muscles, and but you and I walk around with this tone all the time. It's constantly there, so it's a constant feeling of tightness. And I went to the physical therapist the other day. He goes, I'm pretty impressed. He said, because your CP tone is far less now than your natural tone. He said your natural tone from working out and doing martial arts has counteracted that CP tone, so it's not as magnified. And so he was pretty impressed with that. And the other thing is, as we talk about it, talk about me doing radio in an inaccessible building, and so many times I'm like, I've heard, why don't you just sue these people and get it over with? You could own this company, and it's so unfair that you have to climb these stairs. And I'm like, this, to me, this is the career that I chose. When I got out of high school, I was like, it's time to, like, if you're not going to go to college, it's time to shape up, make something in your life, and be a productive human being in society. And if this is what you want to do, then this is what you're going to have to do it. And so I did the stairs 3 or 4 times a day, up and down to be able to do radio. And, I would make my way around the mezzanine. And
Well, they wanted to move you downstairs so that you didn't have to do all the stairs and everything, but he wanted to be up there with the cool kids. That's what it boiled
that's
down
what it
to.
was,
That's what
and
it boiled down to.
and it, I think, so what I'm trying to say is, there are some accommodations, and if you need them, use them, but you don't have to sue everybody over everything. Like, and actually, when you do that, and when you have that mindset of somebody needs to be sued because I'm uncomfortable, or I'm having a bad day, or this building just sucks, you're actually making it worse for everybody else who is trying to make inclusion what it should be. And inclusion should be an opportunity to experience life as close to normal as you can, given your potential with a disability. And that's really what we're trying to say here tonight. We're not bashing anything. We're not saying that what you're doing is wrong. We're just saying, if you think you're doing somebody by a favor by shielding them, or making life a fairy tale, you're not doing them a favor, because that's not what real life is about. And that's not only here in the disabled world. I mean, we got to look at that in terms of society. Like, life is,
Well, that's exactly what I was getting ready to echo is, and that's what I want to really stress to our listeners who do have disabilities, is that, if anything, the previous administration in Washington taught us that there's a segment of the population that would happily do away with all of our benefits, all of our free money, all the services that we get. They would happily, in an effort to balance the budget, they would happily 86 most of our programs, and we would just be left out in the cold. Now, is that likely to ever happen? Probably not. But I would advise every single person who can hear my voice, if you've got a disability, embrace as much of your own independence and your own ability to do things for yourself as you possibly can. Any skills that you have, that you currently have that are viable, keep them, build upon them, make new skills, because we never know, none of us know what tomorrow may hold. And there may come a day where we don't have that check to depend on. We don't have that caregiver to depend on. We don't have that family member to depend on, when all we have is ourself. And regardless, unless your disability is just so profound that it makes it impossible, there should always be some level to where we can handle our own business, as the kids say. At least that's the way I feel.
And I think, before we close this one out, the other thing to think about is, if you're somebody that is, I don't even know, I'm just going to say the word because it's the word I've always used. If you're somebody that's able-bodied, like, just get to know somebody for who they are, and don't judge the book by the cover. It's true. And if you're an employer, give somebody that chance to take that career or that thing that they say they can do, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to be 20 times better of an employee than somebody without a disability. Now, it's not to say I didn't show up late my fair share of the time.
Every day. And he blamed his wife.
These kids today, Charlie, I don't know what we're going to do with them.
You know, the problem with kids today, and I just got to get this off my chest because it bugs the hell out of me. Stop giving everybody trophies. Let's stop the participation trophy. Let's reward for the job done. It's you show up and you play soccer and your team loses and you get a trophy because you showed up. No, that's not the way it works. And you see this stuff and it just drives me crazy because the mentality of this 20-something age to where if I worked my life as hard as I could to achieve something, I finally got there and I gave it my all and I got my butt kicked, I wouldn't just be like, oh, well, I tried hard. I'd be crying my eyes out because I didn't win.
Like you said with the participation trophies, Charlie, that participation trophy totally craps all over the people who got first, second, and third. Why work hard to get first place if somebody's going to get a medal anyway, if they're going to get a trophy anyway? It almost invalidates the people who do work hard if you show up and get a trophy just for showing up.
Well,
I mean, I'm sorry, but the sting of defeat is what makes you work harder for next year. Seeing someone else do a move that you can't do makes you try harder to do that. You shouldn't just be placated and, oh, well, it's okay, you don't have to. That placation leads to death. It's a slow death. And America was not built on that kind of attitude. If the people who built this country had that kind of attitude, we wouldn't be here.
Paul, and we take it back, and that's really what my point of the podcast here tonight is like, if you're somebody with a disability, like, you can't quit. Like I told you in the other episode a few months back, I did the Spartan. I had some shorts that said no quit, no can't, no excuses. Got to the cargo net, started freaking out, and I'm like, too many people are behind me, invested in me. I can't quit. And I think, like, you have to realize that, like, you're not alone in this disability. There are people that are invested in you, and you may not be able to do everything the way everybody else can, but, and this I had a hard time at first getting used to, accepting the fact that it was okay that I didn't do it the same way Charlie did, but I was okay with the fact that I did it. And so you need to be proud of that. You need to pass this same sort of mentality on to other disabled people. And that is what I'm trying to tell you. That's the model of a disabled person that I would like to see, is somebody that fights for inclusion, understands the boundaries around inclusion, and just plays it right down the middle and works hard for it. But if you're able to do something, then do it. Don't quit because it gets a little hard. Life is hard.
It goes back to what we've been, life is a contact sport. Life is a full contact sport. If you can't take the hits, you're going to lose. But that feeling, you're depriving yourself of that feeling we talked about earlier, that wonderful sense of accomplishment of, okay, yeah, my legs are sore, or, I'm out of breath, or I'm tired, or I'm having a bad day mentally, or whatever. That feeling of pushing yourself forward and overcoming that and coming out the other side, that is such a wonderful feeling. And if you just quit, you cheat yourself and rob yourself of that feeling. And I just don't understand why anybody would want to do that. I love the Rocky movies. And Rocky tells his son, going one more round when you don't think you can. That's what makes all the difference in not just the fight, but in life. Going beyond what you think you can do. That's how winning is. That's how success happens. You don't win, you don't succeed by quitting.
Amen.
Absolutely. It's like I tell people, hey, I've been counted out since 1978. Can you please keep counting me out? Because that's what makes me keep going, just to prove to you that I can. So yep. I think if somebody's out there with a child or somebody with a disability that's listening to this that doesn't have the same mindset, that's what I want you to take away. Like, start to adopt a little bit of that mindset, and you're going to see that you're much happier in life. Life is a lot better. You'll have tough days, but
right. And if they want some encouragement, they want some help, reach out to me. Hit me up on an email. Hit me up on Facebook, Instagram. Reach out to me on YouTube. I'm on all those things. Paul Graber. All you got to do is search Paul Graber, Graber, and you'll find me.
Well, we appreciate you joining us again tonight, Paul. Great insight, and
pleasure.
Yeah, love your take on things. And Jason?
Hey, man, this was a tough episode tonight. This was an eye opener, but that's what this podcast is about. It's a raw, real life look at disabilities, and so although I was a little apprehensive about doing it, I'm glad we did, and I got no regrets. We'll throw it out there, and hopefully it changes some lives and some attitudes.
All right. You've been listening to Beyond the Label, a raw, real-life look at living with disabilities, presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. AdaptiveMartialArts.org, breaking barriers one move at a time. Until next time, JD.
So long, buddy. We'll see you again.
All right. Thanks again to Paul Graber.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Label. If you'd like to be a guest on an upcoming episode, email contact@adaptivemartialarts.org. Beyond the Label is produced by JD Production and presented by the Adaptive Martial Arts Association, the nation's leading resource and support network for the adaptive martial arts community. Check them out at adaptivemartialarts.org. Breaking barriers, one move at a time.